Encuentro Mundial de Valores por la invitación, porque es trascendente presentar mujeres de esta calidad y esta talla que nos pueden ayudar a mejorar nuestras condiciones de vida, a mejorar nuestras actitudes y a poder lograr ese desarrollo que todas las mujeres necesitamos, pero que son trascendentes para la sociedad. Me da mucho gusto presentar a Diane Cirincione en la conferencia Sanación, tus actitudes. Cambia tu actitud, mejora tus relaciones. Ella es psicoterapeuta especializada en psicología clínica y comportamiento organizacional. Fundó los seminarios de transición para mujeres y ha pronunciado conferencias en todo el mundo relacionadas con la salud y con la educación. Miembro del consejo en diversas instituciones y organizaciones, presidenta de Jamponsky Outreach Foundation, que aplica un modelo Attitudinal Healing. Ella es directora de Attitudinal Healing Internacional, AHI en sus siglas. Ha recibido más de 17 premios internacionales de diversas organizaciones y está aquí para presentarnos esta conferencia. Bienvenida, Diane.
A todos. Mi español es muy limitado. So I'm going to give you the gift of speaking in English. And I want to thank very much the translator today and the translators for the conference for all of the work they've done to come here to help us. And as I go around the world, there's no way that any work could be done without translators. So I thank you wherever you are. Thank you. I think we can all thank you. Before I've ever given a talk or talked to someone on the phone, a client, a patient, I always do a very simple prayer, and I'd like to invite you to join me in it, regardless of your belief system. When I say you, it means whatever it is that you believe in. It's very short, less than a minute. But I say it, it's called the healer's prayer. I say it because it helps my ego go to sleep and my spirit to come up and awake. And it goes like this. If you're comfortable, close your eyes. That I am here only to be truly helpful. That I'm here to represent you who sent me. And I don't have to worry about what I'm going to say or what I'm going to do, because you who sent me will direct me. And I'm content to be wherever you wish, knowing that you're always going there with me. And I know that I will be healed as I let you teach me to heal. Amen. And that's from the idea that the problems of the world will never be solved at the level of thinking that they were created at. That we need to go beyond, over and above, the way we have been thinking about life and about death and about caring for the planet and caring for each other. And this conference is such an extraordinary event. You should be so proud to have this emanating from here in Monterey. And I'm honored and humbled, to be a small part of it. Last night at dinner, I was sitting next to Emmeline Perales from Costa Rica in France. And we were speaking about this beautiful man from Costa Rica, who's passed now, Robert Bullard, who was the Assistant Secretary General of the UN for 34 years. He's an old friend. And he started the University for Peace in Costa Rica. Perhaps you've heard of it. And it was in a moment back in the mid-1980s where he gave a talk and he said something. It was one of those moments that change your life. He said that every single action learn in my own life that my thoughts, my words, my actions, they all affect the world. They affect everything that's happening around us because we are a vibrational field. And there are those moments, like when you look now, what we're trying to do maybe in quantum physics, and we look at vibrations at the subatomic level. They opened up the atom, and what did they said they found the God particle, which was this vibration going all around the planet. It's like, you can't separate it. You can separate it, but you can't separate it. What you do to one part of the vibration, you do to the other, which means we are all deeply connected at another level of knowing, another level of consciousness. And I know with so many women in the audience today, so many of us, if not all of us, and some men too, have had those experiences of knowing something different than what they were actually seeing in the world, an intuitive way of knowing. And all of this starts within our belief system. The belief systems that we have. When we are either conscious or unconscious in our evolution, when we are less conscious, we believe that like our belief system is real, and I mean, it is real, of course, for us, and it's true. Okay, it's true for us, but is it true for everybody else? Why are we having wars with everyone? Why are we disagreeing on everything? Because my belief system is right, yours is wrong or less than right. Okay, so what is the belief system? I mean, as a psychologist, I deal with this all of the time, not just with my clients, but with myself. Like, what am I holding? Where did I get this belief system? You know, from my young childhood, from my siblings, from my parents, from my church, from my community, from my education, from my profession. Where did I get this? My belief system changed over time, but it seems to be holding true as to who I am. Well, what is that belief system? For me, it's the idea that what I think is true for me, quote unquote, I have a perception, I have a projection of what I think. And when I look at the world, I look at a situation, am I really seeing what happened, or am I overlaying that with my projection? Because I can only see through my eyes, which are different than every one of your eyes. I am projecting out onto an event, and what happens is what I perceive. And what I perceive is what I think is true, and that reinforces my belief system again. So part of transformation is breaking open our belief system and knowing, yes, this may have been true when I was a child, it may have been true 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or in my case, a lot more years than that. But what is true for me today? And let me remember that if it's true for me, it doesn't need to be true for someone else. So it's the idea of what we believe, how we believe, to be consciously aware of it, and always questioning what we believe. And how true is it? Is it true just for me? And what is it for someone else? How do I understand their belief system? Because there's these moments, there's like moments in time where we have a shift. You know, if you think back in your life from the time that you were a child, you think back that there may be a handful of moments where you changed, where you were different because of something that you experienced. Of course, there's all the trauma we experience as kids, there's abuse, etc. You know, one of my areas of expertise is domestic violence. Why? Because I grew up in it. And I know I'm not the only person in the auditorium that's done that. We'll talk more about that tomorrow at the workshop. about how do we move through these things. But I've been affected by a number of different things. And I'll mention maybe just two of them here. I remembered not that long ago an experience I had when I was 4 years of age. 4. Think of little 4-year-olds you know, okay? I remember I was playing with my friends. And all of a sudden, I stopped. And I looked at my hand. And I took these fingers over my other fingers. And I said in my mind, I remember it as if it was yesterday. Somebody stuffed me inside here. I'm so much bigger than this. I'm stuffed in this body. And I remember puffing like a little child and thinking, I just have to stay here for a long time. And at that moment, I knew that everybody else in the world was bigger than they seemed. They were more than they seemed. I didn't know what it meant, but I'm beginning to understand now that we are more than just our bodies born to die. Anyone that has had spiritual or transcendent experiences knows that there is more to us. That there's the body, there's the brain, and then there's the mind. And that debate goes on in physics and in medicine. But if you've ever had the experience of mind being separate from body, or a near-death experience, you know that there's something else, something different. So that was one of the moments. And the other one happened a number of years later. I have had the gift of having a partner, a spouse, of 40 years. And it was pretty extraordinary. And he passed about 18 months ago at a very old age. And his name was Jerry Jampolsky. A lot of people know him by a number of his books: Love is Letting Go of Fear, Teach Only Love, Goodbye to Guilt, Change Your Mind, Change Your Life, and a number of books we've written together. When I first knew him, back in 1981, about 2 years later, he had said to me, we weren't married yet, he said, I really think that you should come and talk with me on the stage. His book was like #1 on the New York Times bestseller list at the time. And I said, are you crazy? There is no way I'm going up on a stage and talking next to you about any of this, because I don't have anything to say. And he said, you know, I meditated on it, and that was my guidance to ask you. Well, fast forward a couple of weeks. He asked me, would you pray? Would you meditate on it? Which became a way that we decided on everything that we did. You know, we worked in over 60 countries over 40 years. And everywhere we went, we always asked that question. What is it I need to know? So the answer was yes. And I remember saying, you're in the wrong meditation. I'm not going out there. And I think of these moments of fear, the moments of like, oh no, something in me says yes, and the other part of me, my fear, says no, no way. And I want you to think about in your own life those moments. Maybe it was before a test, or working on a team, or a job, or whatever it is, or going up on a stage. And I wound up going. It was at the University of California in Irvine. Big venue like this. Before we went into the venue, I'm telling you this because this is a life-changing moment for a reason. Before we went into the venue, we were sitting outside in the park, and someone handed us the flyer for the event. It was an all-day workshop. I looked at the flyer and I went, my name's not on here. I'm not going out there. and Jerry, my beloved psychiatrist husband, sitting next to me, said, well, you know, Diane, even if your name was on there, you wouldn't have to go out there. I said, well, fine, it's not on there, I'm not going. And then he said, can I ask you a question? I said, what? He said, why did you come here today? I closed my eyes. I asked myself a question. And what I said was, I came here to give love. And then he looked at me and he said, are you capable of doing that? And I said, well, I can do that. And then he said, that's all you'll ever be required to do. And then he said, I may see you at the end of the day. I may see you in the audience. I may see you on the stage. I love you. And he got up and he walked away into the hall. And I asked the universe, are you really telling me that at a core level, I just have to bring my truest love and it will flow? And the answer was yes. I went in, I walked through the auditorium, I walked up on the stage. And that started 40 years of never once, ever, ever having the slightest nerves about being anywhere. Radio, television, stages, it didn't matter. Because we always reminded each other, we're here just to give love. In whatever form it is, like all these speakers have brought their incredible talents, and they brought their love too, because they gave it so generously. So, I have to tell you that today, throughout the last 2 months, all I've got to do is bring my love, and the rest will flow. I say that to remind you of those moments where you know in your heart, you want to go ahead, you want to move, you want to do something. You want to think something, say something, do something, and it's scary as heck. But you do it anyway. And I'm here as a testament to say, go for it. Thank you. These are moments for me that are like miraculous moments we have in our lives. We were taught in many ways miracles come from other places, but I think we also participate in them. And a beautiful definition that was given to me and to Jerry by Dr. William Thetford, who was one of the scribes of Course in Miracles from Columbia University. He said, can you just give us your definition of a miracle? And I love this definition. He said, a miracle is a shift in perception that removes the blocks to the awareness of love's presence in our lives. I'll say it again. A miracle is a shift in perception that removes the blocks to the awareness of love's presence in our lives. And I see that love with a capital L. It makes us think about the idea like, okay, who am I? Why am I here? You know, am I just a body that's born to die? Or am I more than that? Am I a spiritual being? I mean, our roles change throughout our lives, stuff, but then the question remains, who am I? And that's part of transformation. Whether we change consciously or we change unconsciously. For me, when I'm changing unconsciously, the world is changing me. Now, more often than not, I want to change consciously. And those are the choices that I make. I mean, our attitudes. More than how much money we have, how much success we've known, how many degrees we have, how many children we have, what we've accomplished in the world, more than any of those things, the major determinant of whether we are happy or not is not how much we've accomplished, but our attitudes about that. Attitudes are so powerful, and unless we question our own attitudes, whether it's in politics, I come from the US, we're pretty crazy up there at times, and the questioning, if you don't question it, then you lose it. If you don't make up your mind, someone's going to make it up for you. And it's our attitudes are what precede the challenges we have in life. This is about being conscious evolution. Our attitudes affect the challenges that are presented to us. And you know as well as I do that most of the time the world is out of our control. There are some things we can control, but we can always control our attitudes about it. So when these challenges come, we're making choices. The choices we're making every day, they're either being made unconsciously or they're being made consciously. So our attitudes affect our challenges. With the challenges, they are determined by the choices we make. And let me ask this question for you, because I ask it to myself all the time. With the big questions in your life, do you make them based on love, or do you make them based on fear? Because how you make those choices determine much of the outcome. I'm not saying making it out of love is better than making it out of fear or vice versa. I have no idea. If I've learned anything in life, it's that I don't know what's best for another person. I know that if I tell myself I'm really making this decision out of fear, then at least I know. And if that's not working for me, I can choose once again. But remember, decisions are made out of love or they're made out of fear. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. To be that honest with yourself. I have lived through this my life to try to figure it out. And let me tell you, so when I was invited here for the first talk, I had no intention of speaking publicly after my Jerry had passed. I said, no, thank you. I went to sleep that night and I asked always the same question I ask every night. What is it I need to know? And the next morning I woke up and the little voice in my head said, did you pray about that? Did you meditate about that? And I went, no. I made the decision based on fear. And I meditated that morning and I thought, yes. Does that mean I wasn't afraid between then and now? No, I certainly was at times. But I trust that guidance. It's that inner voice, that inner way of knowing. The attitudes we have are so powerful that they drive us, and unless we are aware of them and willing to open to change them, our lives go on a very narrow path. I'll tell you about two teachers that we knew. Both these gals were from the Midwest in the United States. They went to high school together. They went to college together. They went to the teachers' college in their state. They both became teachers. They both loved teaching. 15 years later, one of them absolutely loved being a teacher, and the other one burned out so badly that she quit the profession. We went, wow, we knew these gals earlier on. What happened? What was the difference between them? Because they worked in the same school. I forgot to mention that. Their profession was in the same school. The one thing that was different between them, the one who thrived and loved education, whenever she met an obstacle, instead of banging against it with her anger and her upset about the system, and we all work in systems and we know what that's like. I'm an organizational behaviorist also, so we know it can be crazy working in organizational groups. But she kept, whenever it happened to her, she would find a way. She'd kind of go back, what is my opportunity now? I can't do that, clearly, I've tried with all my heart, but let me find another way. She always asked, said this statement, there must be another way. The other one who burned out and quit, whenever she reached that barrier, she would like crash and burn emotionally. And it got worse and worse and worse, and she quit. It was the single element of the attitude they had about their work that made all the difference. And I could give you a dozen stories like this. I tell you this to bring into your own consciousness times in your own life, and how do you respond? I don't know how you should respond, but I know you do. And to remember that it's always, always a choice. So the attitudes we have affect the challenges. The challenges are affected by choices. And the choices we make, like these two teachers, create the change that we will experience. And the change is the element of transformation. And we go through that, mostly unconsciously, but sometimes consciously. And that's what we're thriving to do and striving to do in this world today. The work that I've done over the years with Jerry, my husband founded this in 1975, was called Attitudinal Healing. There's no script what somebody's attitude should be healed to. It's just that the idea that we can heal our attitudes. And the definition of it is, attitudinal healing is the realization that it's not people or events outside of ourselves or experiences or our past that are ultimately causing us upset in this moment right now. So all those things that happened, all the abuse, all the violence, all the betrayals, all of that. Right now, what's causing me the pain are my thoughts, my attitudes, my judgments about that experience. That's what's causing me distress. I can't change those things. I can deal with them. I could do lots of, we're going to talk about that tomorrow at the workshop if you happen to join me, what to do with that. The reality is, though, in this moment, my thoughts and my attitudes, I can do something about that. You know why? Because they're mine. What happened back there happened to me. Okay. I had a violent father, and I am not the only one in this audience, I said, who had a violent father. It was like a volcano living in the house. Can you identify? Ready to erupt. And because of that, and because of experiences like that, many of us, almost all of us, have had to adapt to survive. And in order to adapt, we had to give up part of ourselves, part of our truest selves, in order to get what we think we needed to be safe. So for me, it was my voice. I was so far from being in touch with my own voice and feelings as a child, because in the house, I was trying to keep the volcano from erupting and hitting my mother and my brother. I succeeded at it a lot of times, not always. But the price I paid, of course, my survival tool, which I needed, was good I had it, was to learn to be really controlled. And like so many gifts that we develop when we are children as survival tools, they become a great asset, right? We get older, I had 4 companies, I was doing all these things, everything I touched in the world, my grades, my school, everything, I was successful at. But I couldn't feel it. It was all in my head. And I named it the longest journey in the world. It's like 18 inches. It's like out of my head and into my heart. And that only came through the journey of forgiveness, which is a whole other talk. And it doesn't mean agreeing with, doesn't mean supporting the same behavior. It means releasing myself. And so I did over time. And what were survival tools for me before no longer worked for me. And I'm sure a lot of you know, the survival tools you develop as a child can sometimes become an impediment when you're an adult. So it takes process, it takes the healing of our heart, healing of our attitudes, healing of our minds, healing of our souls, in order to maintain the gifts that we developed and letting go of the anger, the fear, the grievances, the rage, the hate. That's what tomorrow will be about too. So when you change your mind, you change your life. It sounds really simple, but it's not easy. It takes courage. There's a wonderful book that some of us are old enough to remember, and I highly recommend it. It's a classic called Women's Ways of Knowing, about women's voice. And it wasn't until I went back to school that I read it and I realized, oh, there I am in the middle of it. It's the ways that women came to know or be told they knew in the world, in all different cultures. Having worked on, 5 continents and traveled 85% of the time over 40 years, I have met a lot of people and a lot of women. And at a core level, experiences may be different degrees, but they're very, very similar. And up until this time, and even now in many places in the world, we were pretty much defined by who we were. And that's wonderful. We get to people can define us the way we want. But in this era, right now, to find our own voices, it goes from silence in Women's Ways of Knowing, which is, I don't know anything, I have nothing important to say, my voice is never heard. All the way through gathering other information, learning to be objective, and gradually finding your own voice, and then integrating it with the voice of other wise women and men. And then having your own, your own knowledge, your passionate knowledge that you share in the world. And you're here at this conference for a reason. There's part of you that is searching, is growing, wants to expand in what you're doing. Or you have that voice behind you that says, I really want to do this, but I have no idea how to do it. You don't have to know how to do it. There's a beautiful phrase in A Course in Miracles that says, you need a little pure willingness, a little pure willingness, non-egoic willingness to serve. And it will come. It will come to you. Everything that you need. Trust me, I know I've had a lifetime of it. I can barely remember the number of miracles that have happened. Things that happen like, how did that happen? How did I wind up there? How did this wind up here? You're not alone in the universe, even though you might feel like it. I mean, it's the way of women to kind of communicate with each other, to collaborate, to commit together, to create together, and to celebrate together. We do it really, really, really well, don't we? We do. We have an intuitive way of knowing and feeling each other. So to reach out to the women and the men around you in your life, you will never be able to heal the whole world. I worked in the peace movement, for so many years and realized with Russia, with all these different places, China, it's like, you can't heal the world. You can't bring peace to the whole world, but you can heal your own world. And you can bring peace to your own world. That's the power within every single one of us. And this is a wonderful statement my husband used to make, and I'm sure others have made it too, but he said, it's no telling how much can be accomplished when nobody cares who takes the credit. Just as Byron Katie says, show up, pay attention, tell the truth, and don't be attached to the results. And listen to that inner voice, that intuition that we've had all of our lives. And in so many cases have had to shove down because it just wasn't safe for one reason or another. That's the voice that's speaking to you. The personality, ego self, the Diane that was born and grew to this age here is myself with a lower S, and my higher self with a capital H with a capital S. The one that knew I was stuffed inside here for this incarnation. Okay? Those are the things to remember when we think in terms of who we are in this world and why we came here. The earth is changing more and more. Women are the keepers of the earth. We are the ones that birthed the earth. And along with men, we toil in the earth and we bring it forth. There has been a great unconsciousness about how we have evolved. There's absolutely no denying, if you're paying attention, to the fact that those ice caps are going to melt completely and totally and rapidly. There's no denying that the permafrost is going to be exhaling. There is so much that has to be done now. Hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of species a month are going away. I am convinced that this planet will survive. I think it's 50-50 whether the Homo sapiens will. And this is the moment. There's no accident you're sitting in this audience. There's no accident that you are going for transformation. Because transformation from the beginning, starting with our own attitude, all the way through, is part of conscious evolution. This is our time. This is our moment. And I say to myself, and I share with you, as you go forward, think about those choices you're making. Yeah, is it scary? Oh my God, it's very scary. And if you have children and grandchildren like I do, you wonder about their lives, what it's going to be like for them, and it will be different. But how different it will be depends on what we do. So yes, the feeling of fear, the cringe I call it, the fear. But love is far, far more powerful than fear. It is what connects us all. Thank you so much for all you do in the world, who you are in the world, even though I don't know you. I celebrate you. I appreciate you for standing beside me in doing everything that you can. And as Mother Teresa had so beautifully said, we worked with her for many years, my husband and I, and she has been known to say, it's not how much you do or how much you accomplish in life that counts. It's how much love you do it with. Thank you.